Last time, we looked at what a revolution Sonic 1 brought to the platforming genre and gaming at large. Well, that revolution propelled Sonic to become the face of the industry. 2 years and one mainline sequel later, and the Blue Blur was in his golden age. 1993 was indisputably the height of this Sonic boom, with the debut of 2 animated cartoon shows and 4 starring roles in video games. But before we get started, let's take one last look back at where it all began. Sonic the Hedgehog 1. Look closely, breathe, stay calm, concentrate, and get out your blotter paper, cause we about to drop some acid! This is a new day! This is madness! This is Sonic CD! It's Sonic 1, but on hallucinogenic drugs, and probably a few steroids. Sonic the Hedgehog CD was released for the Sega CD in the fall of 1993. It was also the first compact disc I had ever seen. Some people think of this game as a sort of interquel between Sonic 1 and 2, and in plot it probably is. But I've always thought of it more as an alternate universe version of what a sequel to Sonic 1 could be. And that's actually surprisingly kind of accurate. You see, Sonic the Hedgehog was primarily the vision of 3 men. Naoto Oshima created the character, Yuji Naka programmed the game engine, and Hirokazu Yasuhara directed the project. But after the development of Sonic 1, Naka, Yasuhara, and the majority of the Sonic team moved to the United States to mentor the new hires at the Sega Technical Institute. While they were in the US, they created Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Meanwhile, Oshima, Sonic's original creator, stayed behind in Japan, where he soon found himself directing Sonic CD. Each game shows off a completely different approach to a Sonic sequel. Where Sonic 2 upgraded the engine and put a greater emphasis on speed and movement, Sonic CD instead tightened the focus on slower-paced platforming and exploration. Now that doesn't mean that Sonic CD couldn't be played quickly, or that Sonic 2 did not reward taking your time. It just wasn't what the level design tended to push you toward. Where Sonic 2 was intuitive, Sonic CD was far less so. It's not surprising that it would be a hard concept to wrap your head around, because CD's signature mechanic was time travel. I've shied away from over-explaining things you'd get from the instruction manual to this point, but Sonic CD is quite a bit more obscure than the games I've talked about so far. Sonic CD takes place on the Little Planet, which is said to appear for 1 month out of the year over Never Lake. Sonic finds the planet chained to a mountain and mechanized, and knows it must be the work of Dr. Robotnik. By the way, how sweet is this opening cinematic? Gotta love CD technology. I remember watching this thing over and over and tormenting the other kids at school, singing the song, anyway. The debuting Princess Sally follows Sonic to Little Planet, where she's almost immediately kidnapped by Eggman's latest creation, Metal Sonic. So Sonic has 2 goals this time. Save Sally by proving himself superior to his robot doppelganger, and rid Little Planet of Robotnik's influence. But it's gonna take more than just beating him this time around, and that's where the complexity comes in. Little Planet is home to 7 mysterious time stones, which hold great influence over the planet's cycles. Yeah, these things are blatantly stand-ins for the Chaos Emeralds, but no problem. Thanks to the Time Stones, and more specifically thanks to the amount of art data that can be crammed on a CD, every level in Sonic CD has 4 unique designs: the past, the present, and 2 possible futures: a good future and a bad future. Your goal, if you want the good ending, is to make each zone a good future. Zones are littered with past and future signposts. You pass one of them, a ghastly voice proclaims your temporal destination, and then you have to find a way to maintain speed for a while. If you can pull this off, Sonic will do the time warp. If not, you'll lose your opportunity and have to find another post. Each time period features unique art and music, and the level layout is tweaked as well. By default, you'll go to the bad future if you go in that direction, so your real target in all this is to take out Robotnik's robotization machine. The machine is broken down and dilapidated in the present and future, but it's still doing its job in the past. So, you go to the past, you seek out the machine, and you destroy it. That prevents badniks in the area from being created and makes for a good future. The third zone of the stage always takes place in the future. If you've made a good future in each of the first 2 zones, it's a good one, otherwise it's a bad one. Are you confused yet? As this demonstrates, Sonic CD is not the kind of game that wants you to get through it quickly. It wants you to take your time, breathe in the atmosphere, and seek out every nook and cranny of a zone. This game, more than any other in the series, really shows off the nature versus technology theme that hung in the ephemera throughout the classic series. While the bad futures show a dystopian hellscape where technology has taken over, I really appreciate the way that the good future showcases a hybridization of nature and technology existing in balance with one another. Speaking of a struggle between 2 opposing forces, let's talk about the music. Sonic CD is an absolute standout in a series that's already known for having legendary music, and it features not 1, but 2 distinct soundtracks. One was used in the Japanese and European versions, while the other was composed in the United States and used exclusively in that version. The 2011 re-release of Sonic CD lets you toggle either soundtrack. Back in the early days of the internet, some of the first of many flame wars in the Sonic community's history were fought over this issue. For the most part, the soundtrack you prefer seems like it largely comes down to which one you grew up with. The Japanese soundtrack is a lot more traditionally Sonic, if that makes sense. It's catchy and upbeat, with influences of J-pop and techno. The US version doesn't sound as much like your typical early 90s video game music. It's a lot more rock-oriented, and can even be kind of moody and ambient. While I think they're both awesome, I have to give the slight edge to the American soundtrack. It's all a personal preference, but the American version's more nostalgic to me. It's what comes to mind first when I think of Sonic CD, and I love how uniquely atmospheric it is. And hey, Sonic Boom was the first favorite song I ever had, but Sonic CD showcases another, much more important and much more consequential difference in the Sonic community. One of the greatest strengths of the classic Sonic games was that they were extremely rewarding to play in some very different ways. I talked a lot in the Sonic 2 video about what I took away from that game, the things it taught me and the reasons I enjoyed it, and it all came down to skill mastery leading to a spectacle of flow and speed. Controlled chaos. But the classic series across the board also has elements that encourage and reward you for taking your time. Hidden secrets, extra power-ups, and even outright shortcuts that you'd never find if you just stuck to the main road. The Chaos Emeralds also exemplify this, because for the most part, you can't even get a shot at a special stage unless you can hold on to 50 rings. This freedom of choice meant that the classics were enjoyed and appreciated by people across a wider spectrum. Not everybody likes doing the same thing over and over and over and over, but a little bit better each time. But on the other hand, not everybody likes taking their time and looking for secrets to collect. And it's important to talk about here, because what was a strength of these titles led to a real division in the fanbase down the line, when Sonic games became more rigidly locked to one style of gameplay. Now personally, I certainly fall more on the speed side of the spectrum, but for those who don't, it's easy to see why so many people count Sonic CD as their favorite of the classic series. With varied, interesting, and really psychedelic visuals, complex and layered level design, and absolutely epic music, taking your time through Sonic CD can be a very rewarding experience. But Sonic CD, you say? I don't want to take my time. I'm not that kind of gamer. I gotta go fast! What does Sonic CD say to that? Objection! Sonic CD seems to actively discourage and even punish you if you dare to put Sonic's signature superpower to use. The level structure is convoluted, bordering on messy. I said earlier Sonic CD is like a drug trip, but that includes all the positives and negatives of the experience, and these confusing, complex worlds exemplify that. And it's also another example of CD being a kind of alternate reality interpretation of a sequel. Where Sonic 2 was perhaps a bit too straightforward, Sonic CD is just way too obtuse. Or to put it another way, where Sonic 2 rewards skill with speed and punishes failure with slow, Sonic CD punishes speed with walls and interruptions, and rewards going slow by letting you progress at all. Now here's an example of that design. Sonic has a move unique to this game, the Super Peel Out. It's a really cool addition, and if you're like most people, you'll tend to start each zone with it. Try that in Collision Chaos Act 1, and this happens. See, you were supposed to take your time. Wait for Sally to get kidnapped. Then go ahead with the level. Nobody is going to know that their first time. But it goes beyond mere level memorization. The very structure of these zones are way too often just designed to waste your time. It's a problem that befalls the whole game to some extent, but one level stands above the others. I criticized Metropolis Zone in Sonic 2 for being just too frustratingly boring. I laid the smackdown on Marble Zone in Sonic 1 for failing to represent what made Sonic special. But oh man, both of those are as well designed and fun and intuitive as Green Hill itself in comparison to Wacky Workbench. The floor bounces you high into the air, and it's like they stopped designing it right then. Are there enemies up there? Hazards? Unavoidable electric wires? It doesn't matter! You're going up there whether you want to or not. What's worse, the quickest way through the level tends to be staying close to the ground. And in fact, there are plenty of sections where going too high just leads to a dead end. And before anyone tries to defend Sonic CD's level design, yes, I know you can still speedrun them, but that doesn't mean they're good. If you watched my old Remiole Commandments video, you know I can speed through Wave Ocean in Sonic 06 with aplomb. Does that mean Wave Ocean has good level design? Of course not. It means I put enough time into it that I can make it look better than it really is. Most of the footage I'm using here is from the Retro Engine remaster of Sonic CD. But all these design problems were exacerbated in the original version. You have to remember, since this game was built on top of Sonic 1, Yuji Naka basically built the engine that Sonic CD runs on. But Naka was on the other side of the world. It's hard to pin down precisely, but the way that Sonic moves in the original version just feels slightly off from the smoother control of the other games. Now, the Retro Engine does really improve on that. Even then, the time travel gimmick feels sloppy. I mean, what if I don't want to time travel? You have to put on the brakes in the middle of the run just to keep it from happening. Who thought it was a good idea to force the player to come to a voluntary dead stop in a Sonic game? It really interrupts the sense of flow that's so integral to what I enjoy about these games. And sometimes you won't even be able to stop, so you'll make a time warp whether you want to or not. All of this leads to Sonic CD feeling like a game that wants to take away your control. The problem is, even if I do acquiesce to its demands and play it the right way, I still just feel lost and frustrated. But you know what? Maybe I'm a bit of a masochist, because in spite of all I've said, I do still have fun playing it when I play it my way. When Sonic CD isn't beating you over the head with frustrating level design, it can actually be legitimately challenging. The special stages might just be my favorite in the series. They're probably the toughest anyway. Plus, if you can get all the time stones, you'll always have good futures from then on. It's a way for players like me who'd rather not go on 14 expeditions to still get the good ending, and I like that the game was aware of that choice. The Super Peel-Out was also a really fun addition, and it's ridiculous that it hasn't shown up in other games. Just giving Sonic a unique animation to represent that fifth gear was a great idea that really should have become a staple, and maybe that's why this game just feels more disappointing than anything else. It has some really good ideas, but the frustrating level design detracts so much from what is otherwise such a brilliant experience. I came into this project thinking that Sonic CD was the worst of the 16-bit series. It has at least always been my least favorite. But thinking about it from another perspective, I can see why other people really love it. Ultimately, Sonic CD is an anomaly, an outlier. It's divisive and weird. It's fantastic in ways no other Sonic game is, and yet it fails in ways the others excel. But either way, it's just a really unique game, and I'd implore anyone to give it a try if you haven't. Now, Sonic CD put a lot of spotlight on exploration, and as clunky as I thought it was, the next game I'll be covering not only made exploration fun, but refined and sharpened absolutely every other aspect of Sonic's design. So you want to know a secret? There are 6 differences besides the soundtrack between this version of the video and the other one. Can you find them all and win absolutely nothing? Also, hey, follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I constantly post updates to how future videos are coming along. Finally, if you're enjoying the series, please share it with people. There is nothing more inspiring to me than just knowing I'm reaching people. Thank you for watching.